Federalist 14, Part 4. I submit to you, my fellow citizens, these considerations in full confidence that the good sense which has so often marked your decision will allow them their due weight and effect, and that you will never suffer difficulties, however formidable in appearance or however fashionable the error on which they may be founded, to drive you into the gloomy and perilous scene into which the advocates for disunion would conduct you. Hearken not to the unnatural voice which tells you that the people of America, knit together as they are by so many cords of affection, can no longer live together as members of the same family, can no longer continue the mutual guardians of their mutual happiness, can no longer be fellow citizens of one great, respectable, and flourishing empire. Hearken not to the voice which petulantly tells you that the form of government recommended for your adoption is a novelty in the political world, that it has never yet had a place in the theories of the wildest projectors, that it rashly attempts what it is impossible to accomplish. No, my countrymen, shut your ears against this unhallowed language. Shut your hearts against the poison which it conveys. The kindred blood which flows in the veins of American citizens, the mingled blood which they have shed in defense of their sacred rights, consecrate their union and excite horror at the idea of their becoming aliens, rivals, enemies. And if novelties are to be shunned, believe me, the most alarming of all novelties, the most wild of all projects, the most rash of all attempts, is that of rendering us into pieces in order to preserve our liberties and promote our happiness. But why is the experiment of an extended republic to be rejected merely because it may comprise what is new? Is it not the glory of the people of America that, whilst they have paid a decent regard to the opinions of former times and other nations, they have not suffered a blind veneration for antiquity, for customs, or for names, to overrule the suggestions of their own good sense, the knowledge of their own situation, and the lessons of their own experience. To this manly spirit, posterity will be indebted for the possession, and the world for the example of the numerous innovations displayed on the American theater in favor of private rights and public happiness. Here he's talking about the examples that our Americans are setting for the rest of the world in the future. Had no important step been taken by the leaders of the revolution for which a precedent could not be discovered, no government established of which an exact model did not present itself, the people of the United States might at this moment have been numbered among the melancholy victims of the misguided counsels, much at best have been laboring under the weight of some of those forms which have crushed the liberties of the rest of mankind. Happily for America, happily we trust for the whole human race, they pursued a new and more noble course. They accomplished a revolution which has no parallel in the annals of human society. They reared the fabric of governments which have no model on the face of the globe. They formed the design of a great confederacy, which it is incumbent on their successors to improve and perpetuate. If their works betray imperfections, we wonder at the fewness of them. If they erred most in the structure of the Union, this was the work most difficult to be executed. This is the work which has been new modeled by the act of your convention, and it is that act on which you are now to deliberate and decide. It says, we are going to deliberate, think deeply, reflect deeply on what this convention has given us, this Constitution. We have not been blindly venerating old systems just because they're old. Just like we got together in the First Continental Congress and the Second Continental Congress and established a temporary government under the Articles of Confederation and fought this war and got us through the war. And now again, we got together in Philadelphia and proposed this new Constitution that will be good for your happiness and prosperity and will give mankind an example to follow. If we don't do this, this will be so unfortunate for the rest of mankind. So we have to try this noble experiment. And as I've told you before, this is part of why I am interested in studying federalism, because I think in the future our only hope for peace and prosperity of the human family is that we learn from the American experience in federalism, with Canadian experience federalism, and with all the other countries that have experimented with federalism. Also take a serious look at the European Union, see what it has to offer us, what it can teach us with their experience, their mistakes, the corrections of those mistakes, and in the future get together and write a blueprint for uniting humanity. There are some words and phrases here in Federalist number 14 that my favorite president, Abraham Lincoln, I think, has echoed in some of his works. Beautifully written. So I will see you when we read Federalist 15. Just remember that it is important for you to look at the text of the Federalist while you're listening to these, especially if it's your first or second time.